Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Eric Devine and Philippe Bargil. In a weekend of classic rivals clashing all over Europe, France was no different, and Le Classique was another interesting affair with plenty to talk about. However, before we start, here are your latest headlines. While not the goal-scoring extravaganza of last week, heading into weekend's international break, Matchday 9 gave us plenty of food for thought. The weekend started with Lille defeating hapless Montpellier at the Stade Pierre-Mauroy 2-0, thanks to a Sofiane Boufal penalty, an impressive long-range effort from Dribbio Sidibe. Saturday's early match saw a wasteful Lyon come away with a much-needed win over Reims at the rain-drenched Gironde. Alexandre Lacazette missing a penalty, but gaining a measure of redemption after scoring from open play for the first time this season, and his goal the difference in a 1-0 victory. In the multiplex, Guingamp kept their hot streak going by notching their fourth win in 6 games with a 1-0 victory at Troyes, while Angers defeated Bastia by the same score at the Stade Jean Bouin. Bastia's Corsican counterparts fared slightly better, coming back from a goal down to draw with Toulouse 2-2, although the result does leave them in the relegation zone. Nice versus Nantes had got off to a cranking start after a Valère-Germain brace had allowed the host to enter half-time level at 2-2, but the match was suspended after torrential rain with a rescheduling pending. Sunday saw a disappointing draw for Rennes, 1-1 at Monaco, as Pedro Henrique missed a penalty and Paul Georges Ntep left the match with a hamstring problem. The afternoon fixtures proved more entertaining as host Lorient held off a road-weary Bordeaux 3-2, with Lamine Gassama and Andre Biogo Poco both sent off late in the second half. Caen consigned Saint-Etienne to their third straight defeat in all competitions. Andy Lillour's goal on 62 minutes, the difference in a match that despite its 1-0 scoreline, was an entertaining encounter. In Le Classique, Michy Batshuayi's opener, his league-leading sixth goal, was cancelled out by 2 Zlatan Ibrahimovic penalties in the space of 5 minutes. 2-1 the result as PSG stayed top, 5 points ahead of surprise packages Angers and Caen. In Europe, the champions had seen similar success with a comprehensive 3-0 win at Shakhtar Donetsk, while Lyon fell to a home defeat to Valencia. In the Europa League, Liga teams fared similarly unevenly, as credible draws by Bordeaux and Monaco were coupled with disappointing home loss by Marseille. Saint-Etienne were valiant away to Lazio, but fell 3-2 to the hosts after being reduced to 9 men late on. In Ligue 2, Dijon can move 6 points clear of second place Metz with a win today at Tours, while Clermont continue their surprising charge up the table behind striker Famara Diédiou, who has now netted 11 times in 9 starts for the Auvergne side. And that's the news. Remember, so for all your latest news in the world of French football, head on over to our website and follow us on Twitter. The links are all in the description. So, we move on to our first topic today. This Sunday saw another edition of Le Classique as Marseille headed to Paris to take on the league leaders. It was an interesting game with a 2-1 win for PSG. Philippe, was that a deserved result for the champions?
Half and half. I was extremely impressed and very, actually very pleased that the game was much more of a contest that it was all predicted to be. A lot of people around me predicted PSG to win this without any problem, but what we saw was a game where Marseille took the game to the champions, played some really good stuff. They opened the scoreline through Michy Batshuayi, then two PSG penalties, and it basically killed Marseille just before half time. And they still kept going and going. In the second half, they got a penalty in the second half with Serge Aurier fouling Barada, but it was not the wisest tackle of Serge Aurier. But Trapp responded well. He's responding to his critics extremely well, saving that penalty. And in the end, PSG came out a bit more on top. They were in the lead. Matuidi was getting more of the ball in midfield. The passing was getting better, especially down the left hand side. So in the end, yeah, it's more or less a deserved victory. But I think Marseille, nobody would have said it would have been stolen without had it been a draw, had it been 2-2, because Marseille just played some really good football.
Eric, what did you think to the game?
Yeah, I thought it was very entertaining, and I thought it was much more positive for Michel. We talked briefly on the show last week about, sort of how his tactics were being a bit muddled by playing that 4-3-3. He switched to a 4-2-3-1 this week with Lastiara and the Real Madrid youngster Lucas Silva in the central midfield roles, and that worked really well. I thought the two of them both had fantastic games. Sort of letting each other get forward at will to get an extra attacker in. But with those three midfielders, Cabello with Alessandrini and Barada on either side of him, they played a lot of good interchange stuff. Cabello was sort of drifting right early in the first half to overload on Maxwell, and that looked a promising sort of combination there with Manquillo getting involved as well, and Batshuayi dropping deep. I mean, yeah, they looked a really dynamic team going forward. I mean, Barada had a few misplaced passes and he missed the penalty, but that was one of his better matches this season as well. I think it was just a really fluid performance in attack. The defense looked better. There were still a couple of nervy moments. Dave Mandanda had to be at his best to keep out a couple shots. I mean, he tipped a shot from Di Maria wide in the first half. Was one example that springs to mind, but I think Michel is slowly but surely getting his tactics right, and I think that this team was, after the defeat in midweek to Liberec, was, really looking to make a statement against a higher level of opposition. They were, lively and energetic against Lyon, but then the crowd trouble sort of put a damper on what actually happened on the pitch in that game. But now I think we've got, we're seeing sort of more of the level that Marseille can play at, if the team's properly set up. Moving to this formation, and you've still got Diaby to come back, and the youngsters off the bench, the likes of Sarr and Nkudu. I think this has the potential to be the start of something really bright for Marseille. So yeah, credit to Michel for wanting to take the game to the team and to PSG, to the champions. At their stadium, so yeah, well done. It was exciting, and hopefully it's something new of a new dawn.
Well,
yeah, I can see.
Carry on.
I can see they're away from definitely improving as they play like that. Of course, they were extremely motivated before the game. They have a very poor away record right now. Just 1 point from 4 games. And a very good home record. I don't think it's going to stay that way. I think they will have some very good performances on the road between now and the end of May. But I still can't really see where they're going to finish aside from mid-table. It's a good squad. It's not a terrible squad, but still have. I really couldn't even tell you if they're going to finish top half or bottom half, but it shouldn't be too catastrophic. There still is lots of sides in Ligue 1 who could beat them, but then again they're quite low sides who could lose against them. So it's still to me the jury is still out on where they are going to go. What kind of season this is for Marseille? Is it just trying not to have that bad a season, or are they going to push for Europe? I think it's going to be the former.
Well, it's interesting to think that we're not sure where Marseille would finish. I think it's almost pretty certain where Paris Saint-Germain will finish. They won 7 out of 9, They're currently 5 points above any challengers, and if you take out the lucky starters of Angers, well, I wouldn't say lucky, that's a bit unfair, of Angers, Caen, Rennes, then you're going back to Saint-Etienne that are a good 8 points behind them already. At 7 points at the moment, 7 points. Eric, this is Paris Saint-Germain's to lose even this early on, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do think so. Just the troubles that Monaco and Lyon have had getting off the mark, I think really have made this title race over before it's even started, which is a shame, after the way that Lyon had played last year and the acquisitions that they'd made and the dynamism and forward-lookingness and attack that we saw from Monaco in the back half of last season. I was excited for something more resembling a title challenge, rather. But it seems that between Monaco's transfers and injury to Fekir and Lacazette's if he start, that we're really going to have sort of a schlub of a title race. But even with that being said, I think we can still look forward to a highly competitive race for Europe. We've got two teams in Angers and Caen, who we'll talk about later, that are really surprising. Rennes and Saint-Etienne are right up there as well. So yeah, I mean this, everything from 2 to 18, let's say, is still an open book. So I think there's still a lot of reasons to look forward to. It's just really a shame the way the season started with what had been prospective challengers struggling.
Philip, do you think anyone can catch PSG? Is there any way that anyone can claw back at them without? Is it just waiting for PSG to slip up?
Yeah, definitely. It's to me, it's a foregone conclusion. It has been a foregone conclusion since probably match day 2. We had PSG having some tough away games at Lille and Montpellier. We'll talk about Montpellier later. Basically, playing men behind the ball and trying not to lose. And PSG were quite motivated at the beginning of the season. They're still motivated. They've got a very tough Champions League group, and they're really walking on water on that one. It's a 3-0 win against Donetsk. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I really didn't expect PSG to win 3-0 to just walk this game. There's no other way to describe it. Even though, yes, David Luiz and Di Maria's goals were extremely fortunate, but it is PSG's title yet again, and it really is a rarity now, because what France needed was a side with strong finances. But now, what is extremely important for the shall we say, the interest of this league, is that France needs a challenger, and it is starting to become really, urgent that a challenger emerges, be it Lyon, Monaco, Marseille. Marseille, we know, the worst part is Marseille, we know they have money. We know that Dreyfus has quite a lot of cash, but since Marseille didn't get Champions League football, they sold all their best players. And actually, I do reckon that Labrune got some astute signings in there, that Marseille don't look that poor proposition as I thought they would be. But aside from Bayern Munich, Bayern Munich in Germany, sorry. What else could we say about that? In Germany, it's a bit worse, because we also had their Klassiker, which is the equivalent of Le Classico here, which Bayern, they completely destroyed Dortmund. But in Spain, there's 2 teams. In Italy, well, Juventus are quite walking it, but they're having not a good time this season. And in England, it's basically, I'm not quite sure if Arsenal can mount a title challenge or not. Who knows which Arsenal plays in what game. If it's yesterday's Arsenal, they can basically win the Champions League if they want. So you've got challenges everywhere, and France just needs this type of let's say duopoly or even maybe three teams, it would be great, more the merrier, because this is really telling on our European coefficients. PSG walking water at the nets is going to be a great 2 games against Real Madrid, but the simple fact is Lyon just don't look like they're going to go very far, and in the Europa League it doesn't look good either. So we really do need, yes, PSG are going to win the league without any question at all, and we shall see if they can keep their motivation levels up, which is going to be probably their biggest task this season in the league, I say. I mean,
well, it's interesting to think that they've pretty much won the league by this point. It means they can concentrate on Europe, and admittedly, the result at Donetsk, well, it wasn't. Shakhtar are no longer the team at home since they can't play in Donetsk. So
yeah, it was in
yeah. So they're not quite the force they used to be. But looking back at Marseille's performance, Eric, although they lost and although it keeps them in, I think it's in 16th place on 8 points. Can they use this as a catalyst to really actually kick on their season finally?
I think they can. Looking at the fixture list when it first came out, I think most people would have expected a little bit more from Marseille at this point. They, some of these matches they start out with, they haven't got results in, the likes of the loss to Angers, draw against Toulouse. These are matches that we would have, the loss to Reims, the loss to Caen. These are matches that we would have expected Marseille to be getting 3 points in. So yes, they can use this as a springboard, but there are still a lot of challenging matches for this team to come. They're away to Lille in match day 11. They're at home to Lorient, who have shown themselves a pretty dangerous team going forward. They still have Nice, Saint-Etienne, Rennes, and Bordeaux to play before in this first half of the season, as well as Monaco, who can be dangerous as well. So, if Michel gets the balance right, if he's able to place equal focus on the league and the Europa League, I think that yes, they can. It just is really a matter of what he wants to prioritize. They don't have a terribly difficult group in the Europa League, so it would be nice to see them put some effort into that competition and progress. But at the same time, with the league being so wide open beyond PSG, he also needs to put some focus into the league competition. So it's down to the manager. The talent and the positivity and the willingness to get forward and attack are there. It's up to the manager how he wants to prioritize things and develop this side going forward.
Yeah, and I think there's at least an opportunity for Marseille to do something. I know it's doom and gloom in 16th at the moment, but it's such a tight division at the moment with everyone beating everyone. 2 wins and a couple of results go your way, and you're back sort of in the European places. So a good performance, but it would have been nice to get a point at least on the board and then build from there. But you can't always be winners. We move on now to a new section this week where we like to call the host boast. I don't know who came up with that one. I'm going to hand over questioning duties to my 2 esteemed colleagues as I discuss either a French international or a former Ligue 1 favourite, or possibly both, that now plies their trade in the English Premier League. So, Eric, I'll go to you first. Who am I looking at this week?
Yeah, this week we're going to talk about Dimitri Payet. The French squad was announced this week, and Payet, despite a brilliant start to his West Ham career with 4 goals and 3 assists, was once again not included in this match squad by Didier Deschamps. Somewhat of a surprise there. I wondered if you could tell me a little bit about both Payet's role with West Ham and that team's success, and also perhaps a little bit about why Payet hasn't been included.
Well, West Ham have been a little bit of an anomaly in the Premier League this season. They've 8 games in, they're around mid-table, and they've had 3 spectacular away wins at Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, which would read like the worst possible 3 fixtures you could get away at the start of the season, but they've done terrifically, and that's mainly down to Dimitri Payet, really. In 8 appearances so far, he scored 4 goals and created 3 assists. Now, that doesn't sound particularly too strange to us who've watched Liga in the last couple of years. He maybe had an off season when he first moved to Marseille, but his first year at his only year at Lille, he was terrific in that sort of form, and his final year at Marseille, he was sensational. I mean, I think he was 16 assists. I think he finished with that. We'll check that. Yeah, 16 assists and 7 goals. So we know the kind of ability he has, and he's showing that in the Premier League now. Bilic is playing him in that attacking centre midfield role behind usually Di Frassacco up front, who obviously used to play in Ligue 2 for Metz as well. So another Ligue 1 player really still playing his trade well in the Premier League, but he's been fabulous. I mean, there's been people who are thinking he's the bargain of the summer. Can't believe other teams haven't bought him. And this is things we were saying on the podcast. I can't believe that a bigger team didn't come for him. No disrespect to West Ham, but they are currently at least a mid-table side, and he's been terrific. Every time he's touching the ball, he's positive. He's looking to go forward, whether that's running or putting a ball in the box. He's dangerous from set pieces. He scored another goal at the weekend, which is from his initial cross. It's rebounded again off the goalkeeper, who makes a silly mistake, and he's there on the scene to score and put his side level. So he's really, really impressed, and he's spread it across a load of games as well. He's got an assist against Arsenal, he's got an assist against Man City, he scored a double against Newcastle United, where he was absolutely terrific, and he's really taken the Premier League by storm. And I don't think we expected much less of him, really, because he's a fantastic player, and the only reason you can see that he would have been left out of that French squad is because of a reported interview he did with a French site, with him criticising Deschamps. Now, that might be a little bit silly, but at the same time, he was so fabulous last season that there was no reason to leave him out then. He's been left out then. He's been a revelation at West Ham, and he's still being left out. I don't know if Philip, can you give me a reason why he's not in that side? Really,
nobody really understands. There was an interview that Pierre Menez, probably the most famous French football journalist, did with Payet. Menez went to London and asked him a bit of questions, and Payet doesn't understand. Menez doesn't understand. Just has absolutely no idea why it's not happening for Dimitri. Just it's not like these are high pressured games. I mean, no disrespect, it's against Armenia and Denmark. Like I said, I can understand. He needs a break. He needs to get back his fitness levels back up. But Payet is just, he's walking on water. He's probably playing as well as he was last season. I mean, I haven't watched every single West Ham game, but he's looked absolutely extraordinary whenever I watched West Ham. So nobody really understands. So maybe it's a matter of time. Maybe just like Ben Arfa, Deschamps is waiting. But in the case of Ben Arfa, I can understand. But in the case of Payet, I really have no idea what he's waiting for. So it could go all the way to him missing out on Euro 2016, which would be a bit of a shame, I have to admit.
It really will be, because he's lighting the Premier League up at the moment, Eric. I mean, he's just given such a freedom of space by the defenders at the moment. It seems like they're unsure whether to go towards him because he's got talented feet and he can go past them.
Yeah, you don't get that in France.
Yeah, exactly. And then the players can't decide whether they want to stand off him because they know he can put a ball in. And you know every time you have to close him down because he's a wonderfully gifted assist playmaker. Like he just, every single time he touches the ball, it's an assist almost. You know what I mean? It's hard to understand why he's been given such enough freedom. So it's hard in such a competitive league where there is, and he's outstanding in games against top opposition in Arsenal, Manchester City, away from home as well. It boggles the mind. It really does, to be honest. But
yeah, I mean, we talk about. I think that sort of moving on to a more full-fledged discussion of the national team. I think that there's two things at play here. We can talk about this interview and Payet's sort of battles with Deschamps in the past, but I don't really see where he fits into a 4-3-3, and I think that might be part of his problem. we have Valbuena, for example, who operates as a more of a playmaker at the tip of that diamond at Lyon, but he's shown at the past, both in Marseille and for Les Bleus, how he can work very well playing wide on the right. Whereas in a 4-3-3, we don't really necessarily see a natural position, a natural fit for Payet. He has played on the wing at times, and he's also on record as saying he doesn't consider himself a number 10. But the truth be told, that is where he operates most effective. That is how, he operates most effectively, both at West Ham and during his time there with Marseille. And tactically, even though he is a fairly solid defensive player, I'm not really sure how he would fit into this squad, because were he to be included in this 23 and to be brought onto the pitch, there would be a necessary sort of tactical rejiggering, if you will, to have him come on and be at his most effective. Whereas a lot of these other players, I'm looking at the likes of a Griezmann, a Lacazette, a Martial. Intaf missed out due to injury. But these types of players have shown that they can be more versatile by playing in multiple roles across the forward line. Griezmann can play, drift inside, or he can play wide. The likes of Lacazette and Martial both have extensive experience playing in wider areas. I think that in terms of sort of this versatility and ability to switch players in and out, Payet doesn't quite have the necessary ability to fulfill multiple roles that Deschamps is seeking. With a limited number of players available to him. Again, we talked about this a few weeks ago during the international break. Euro 2016 is a wide open competition, and with some of the fine form that a lot of these French national team players have been experiencing to start the season. I'm looking particularly at the likes of Martial, Schneiderlin, Lastiara, surprise inclusion. They've really started the season brightly, and he's got to be thinking that they've got as good a chance of anybody, particularly being the hosts, at winning this tournament. And I don't feel like at this point Deschamps wants to take any risks as regards his squad selection, either tactically or be it political.
Well, the overriding feeling, I think, for me is Dimitri Payet earns you goals, whether that's assists or finishing them off himself, regardless of where he plays. He's played wide 3 times so far for West Ham and created a goal and scored a goal from that position. So, the goal at the weekend, he's come out to the left-hand side, he's crossed the ball in, and then he's come inside from that one and attacked a ball that he was quicker than anyone to get onto the end of. So, he's versatile enough for me, I think, or maybe not as the forward line, but behind possibly 2 strikers that can move around as a 3. I think it'd be interesting, but we'll move on to a sort of wider talk about.
So just one last question, a very very quick answer, because I know we've talked about Payet a lot there. Where does he play? Does he play as behind the strikers in a 4-3-1-2 or something?
Predominantly, he plays in West Ham predominantly play a sort of 4-2-3-1 with Payet either behind the striker or on the left.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, I don't think we'll go back to those this formation. Just bring back Dominic memories.
Yeah,
I think France will stick with 4-3-3. I reckon because it is working.
It brings out the best out of the 3 midfield players, doesn't it? And that's really where they've got a lot of talent. But talking about the squad that Deschamps has picked for the Armenia-Denmark game, there were some interesting choices, like Paul Georges Ntep was originally in the squad but has now been replaced by Lacazette through injury. There are reports that Ntep might be out for 2 months with a hamstring injury. It's not confirmed, but Canal Plus are the ones talking about it. That would be a shame. And also, Benoit Tremoulinas has been replaced in the squad by a surprise one, and Luca Dean has come into the squad. So yeah, I thought I might get a little bit of a chuckle. Philip, looking over the sort of squad, there's a couple of interesting ones. Jallet's back in. Lassana Diarra again has been selected as well. Who do you think's earned that call up out of the sort of surprise selections?
Definitely Areola, but the problem is I don't think he's going to play. He's always been very good. I think we talked about him
Yeah.
last time when we mentioned France. So he was very very good for PSG for Bastia. Now he's playing for Villarreal. I couldn't tell you how well he's playing for Villarreal.
I think they're top of the league at the moment, so he must be doing.
Yeah, it has to be doing something right. I really do hope he gets to play. That he's just not being called up just to watch Lloris and Mandanda not concede any goals against Armenia and Denmark. It would be great if he could play in Copenhagen. Honestly, we know where Lloris stands, we know where Mandanda stands, and I would really love to take a look at where we're at, because in France, I think it's just like everywhere else. La Liga is basically people watch Real Madrid and Barcelona and watch them basically score plenty of goals past them and not really watch the rest of the league. And I think people would like to take a look at Areola, be it on Thursday against Armenia or on Sunday evening. It would be really good. I really hope he does play, but yeah, not sure he will. It does actually bring back some kind of rivalry about who is going to make that goalkeeper spot, which it's not the most interesting debate, because chances are he's not going to play. But it could be a nice reward for this PSG academy guy.
Eric, who do you think was most deserved to get a call up?
Most deserved, I think, is Jale. But just to go back to Areola for a moment, I really feel like, and I agree with Phil's frustrations about maybe his not being able to play, but Lloris is 29 before the end of the year. Mandanda is 31 before the end of the season. France needs to start looking at who their next keeper is going to be. For the under 21s, it's been like Samuez Hassan. I think those of us who have seen him play, will have to agree that he's not the most confidence-inspiring of keepers, despite his reflex save abilities. So I think that Lloris and Mandanda are obviously the number 1 and 2 keepers, but this is purely a move for the future. If we see Areola as being, whether or not he stays at PSG or not, as being, France's keeper in 7, 8, 9 years down the road, as Lloris and Mandanda age out of the position, I think this is necessary for the player to get the idea of what being included for Les Bleus is about. I think that's incredibly important, and I think that regardless of whether he plays or not, this is not only a reward for Villarreal's fine start to the season, but a recognition of his potential. In terms of the inclusions, yeah, I think that Jale has had a fantastic start to the season. Leon has been up and down, but he's been a tremendous presence, contributing to that goal against Ghent, and playing pretty much every game, especially since Raphael's been injured. He'll be 32 by the end of the month. He's no spring chicken, but I think that his performances have earned it, and I think kudos to Didier Deschamps for taking this pick, for recalling Jale. Mathieu Debuchy playing for Arsenal is the bigger name, but with his struggles and those of Sagna, I think that Jale should be starting for France, based on his performances and his two-way ability. So yeah, the other surprise inclusion I think is Diarra. Back in the team for the first time in I think 4 or 5 years now. Back when he was playing with Portsmouth and Arsenal and Real Madrid in the 2010 World Cup qualification cycle. I think he's off to a fantastic start to the campaign for Marseille, and on current form, as much as the Lyon fan of me is pained to say it, with Kondogbia being ruled out with a bit of a knock for these particular squads, he makes the most sense over the likes of Gonalon and Gilles. So again, Deschamps is picking players based on merit, which is what we want to see from a manager who's hungry to win a title that's there for the taking in this tournament. So, yeah, there's some surprises, but I think they're the right kind of surprises. These are veteran players who, aren't going to grouse and moan about their particular role within the squad, but are hungry and happy to be there, and I think contribute both in the changing room and on the pitch. So yeah, well done to Deschamps for re-including Jallet and Diarra, and Ariel for that matter.
Well, I think my pick would have been Paul Georges and Tep, but unfortunately, as it would be when you get called up, and we were talking about him last time when we were talking about the France squad, that he could potentially be that wide man that they bring in. They bring him in, and he goes and gets injured. But he's had a great start to the season since he's been back, but unfortunately he's missing out, and it's the man who seemed to maybe recover in Alexandre Lacazette coming back into the squad. But Philip, was, other than, say, Payet, we've already discussed, was there any glaring omissions really for you?
Not really. I wasn't really surprised that Ben Arfa was not called up, and that's basically the only other one I can think of. I think Koscielny is injured, and he's injured. He's been tried and tested. And basically, this is what we were saying last time around about the French national teams. There aren't that many players who can crush this squad. I don't see a lot of young players who could actually make it to 23. So you do have Payet who can make it. You could have Ben Arfa who can make it. But yeah, that's about it. I don't see Ntep making it. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll get the nod. It'll depend how his season goes, obviously. But if it's going to be between Ntep and Martial, I'm most certainly sure that Deschamps will pick Martial. So yeah, I don't see any other glaring omissions. It's just that Deschamps will probably have some kind of public pressure of picking Martial just because everybody tells him to do that. But I think he will do it eventually in season sense.
I think on form at the moment. I don't think I blame him for picking Martial either. I pose an interesting question to you though, Eric. I was pondering this as I looked at the squad. That obviously Philip brought it up there that Koscielny is currently injured, and the replacement really for that is Mamadou Sakho, who can't really seem to get a game for Liverpool. Do you think he's really deserving of a call-up? He's not really impressed at them with the Reds, who are struggling. Is there maybe try the young blood of sort of a Aymeric Laporte or someone even experienced like a Loic Perrin? Does not cross his mind?
Yeah, I mean, Samuel Umtiti from Lyon hasn't had the greatest start to the season too, but we've seen what he can do. It's a little bit confusing, but I think that, center backs aren't the types of players who generally get rotated in and out, even in friendlies. So I think he wants to see perhaps a little bit more of Mangala, who can partner Varane and Sakho as well. I don't think he sees those younger players as being an integral part of this cycle, assuming Koscielny's return to health. So perhaps he wants to go with someone who has a little bit more knowledge of the ins and outs of what being an international duty means. Again, it's disappointing, because of the reasons I outlined for Areola, just, what this team's going to look like in 5-10 years, well, not 10 years, but 5 years down the road. The likes of an Umtiti or the likes of a Laporte are going to be really important for France going into, say, the qualification cycle for 2020 and 2022. So, bearing that in mind, I would have liked to have seen, perhaps another youngster included in this team. We do have Kurt Zuma, who doesn't have much experience, but has generally been included in squads as of late. But it would have been nice. I mean, Laporte, has been a very consistent player for Bilbao. Has been capped, I don't know how many times for the under-21 team, 10 or 15 times, which is a lot for that age level. It would have been nice to give some of those younger players some experience, but again, perhaps this is Sakho's final chance, and that's how Deschamps is viewing it. That's all I can really think of, honestly.
Zuma will get his chance. I'm quite certain of that. And I completely agree with you that Sakho is maybe being picked up because of Ukraine, because of what he showed in that second leg against Ukraine in that World Cup qualifier. Because he is a born leader. He is he has passion, which was probably a time where it needed to be shown. And unfortunately, I can see him being called up because of that in the future and for this tournament. Even though yes, he does make mistakes, and he's probably not the best centre back to put next to Varane. So yeah, maybe it is a case of Deschamps picking his player, having what we call what Deschamps would just choose his players. He picks Saka all the time, even though he's not performing. Sometimes not even playing for Liverpool, and he doesn't pick Payet anymore. It's just we can't. Yeah.
It's difficult to work him out sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think Saka is going to be piggybacking off that Ukraine goal for the rest of his life. I think we get free drinks everywhere in France. But
yeah, probably, especially for not taking off his shirt for celebrating the third goal. Otherwise, he would have been suspended for a World Cup game.
Yeah,
that was great.
But yeah, we'll move on. It'll be very interesting to see how France do. It's one very easy and friendly, one that they should be winning, but we shall see how it goes. We move on to a team in trouble. With just one win after 9 games, Montpellier are in a spot of bother. They're 4 points adrift in the relegation zone at the moment. Eric, Roland Colbis's job is surely under threat, isn't it?
Honestly, Nathan, it's really hard for me to say that definitively. There's a lot of mitigating factors with this team. It looked like with the acquisition of Yatabare that they had achieved some sort of synchronicity in attack. They've looked really bright since his inclusion. Certainly not the 6th, 7th place form that they showed 8th place of last year, but they looked better. They didn't look relegation fodder. I think that the win against Lorient, I believe it was last weekend, it showed that. And this is a team that was willing to be a little bit more dynamic and free-flowing in attack. We're still waiting for Jamel Saï and Morgan Sanson to come back from injury. Those are 2 key players who I believe would be starting in this 4-2-3-1. Were they healthy? Riyad Boudebouz is yet to really get into a groove in terms of his interplay with the other players, and again, that's down to him not having a consistent forward line around him. I mean, Barrigo's been injured, Paul Ladden's been injured, Kamara started at the weekend. That would have been Yatabare. There hasn't been, due to this spate of injuries, a consistent 11 available to Corby, and because of that, it's really hard to evaluate this team. I don't think that even with Hilton being another year older and a couple players having departed in the window, Lucas Barrios, his second half was really instrumental for Montpellier. Even with those players having departed, I still don't think that we've been given enough evidence upon which to judge this manager. It's, for me, the times I've watched Montpellier play, they've looked good. I've been impressed by what they've seen. They had used the other weekend it almost seemed to be a back 3 with Roussillon and Dabo, I believe it was at the time, pushing on wide, and William Remy dropping back almost to have the team playing with a back 3 with Remy back there dropping deep between Hilton and Daniel Congre. So there's just really a lot of ability in this team, particularly if they're all fit. And we saw how magnificent Morgan Sanson could be last year at starting counterattacks. So I think that Sanson's supposed to come back either later this month or early in November. Let's let him come back. Let's give the manager another 6, 7, 8 matches. We've got Gazalek and Troyes in the league. There's other teams that are struggling. I'm thinking about the likes of Nantes. There's not going to be – Montpellier aren't going to be cut adrift. And Corby showed last season how he could organize his team so much better than John Fernandez had prior to him. He deserves a chance. He deserves to have his full squad. So let's let Morgan Sanson come back, and then let's see how this team is. Give it 2 months. If they're still struggling, rooted to the bottom of the table or thereabouts, come the winter break, then maybe it's time to cut ties. But for right now, I think that injuries are too much of a mitigating factor to really pass a strong judgment on this manager.
Well, we'd like that to be the world that we live in, but football is that kind of business where people's heads roll at a regular basis. So, Philip, what's the feeling in France? Is he on the chopping block?
No, absolutely not. You can't. You have to analyze the situation vis-à-vis the chairman, which is Louis Nicolin, the chairman of the Nicolin Group, which is a massive company. He's basically Mr. Montpellier Hérault Sporting Club, and he is an extremely feisty character. And you just know that him and Jean Fernandez is just not going to cut the mustard. Him and Roland Courbis will cut the mustard because it's the same type of character, so it just goes better. If it were, shall we say, Jean Fernandez still with the Montpellier job, with just 4 points from 9 games, he would have been sacked probably 2-3 games ago. But since both guys know each other very well, they've got the same mentality, they've got let's say the same character. It's just going to stay because Louis Nicolin knows that he's not an easy chairman to work for, and Roland Courbis knows that he doesn't have the best players available. And moreover, Montpellier are not going to go down at this moment in time. I just cannot see it. Unfortunately, because of Thierry's decision of reducing the amount of relegated sides from 3 to 2, we have Troyes and Gazélec, who are absolutely shocking, and I just can't see one or the other not finishing in the bottom 2. So it's quite important that the federation get this ridiculous decision overturned, because otherwise basically the relegation fight is over.
Well, just to
PSG
jump in,
champions and Troyes and Gazélec are relegated.
There is at least 3 going down, Philip, sorry.
Sorry?
At least, I know they overturned that decision, so there is 3 going down. They've delayed.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so at least there's a little bit of a challenge at the bottom.
Then it becomes interesting. But again, I've watched Montpellier several times now. I covered the game on Friday at Lille, and they're just like Bastia, like Bordeaux, like Nantes, like Toulouse. They're just quite organised at the back. They don't have much going forward, but so does half of France. So it doesn't scream complete catastrophic display to me, especially when you see that Lille's first goal was a complete dive by Sofiane Bouffal, and then Montpellier missed a penalty. So 2-0 is. I didn't see that much superiority from Lille over Montpellier on Friday evening. So I really think they'll finish in 12-13 kind of. It'll be a 12-13 kind of season. That's just what I think, because there is quality in that squad, and I can't see them being in the bottom 5 come the season's end. And I certainly can't see Courbis being sacked by Nicolas right now.
It does help when you're almost best friends with Nicolas, who you're very right in saying is not the easiest man to get on with at the best of times. But Eric, so if injuries go the right way, do you think that Montpellier are really a mid-table side and just in disguise at the moment?
I don't think they're a dead cert for safety, even with Sanson coming back. But, again, I think we've really got to evaluate this team based on their full complement of players. I mean, we talk about the likes of Lille. Lille are Sofiane Bouffal and a bunch of guys who want to break you in half at this point. I mean, it's there's not a lot of teams that really inspire me. I mean, Toulouse have some decent stuff going forward with Ben Yedder and Braithwaite. But they've shown not to be as defensively solid at the back as they had been. I mean, Nantes are pretty abject going forward as well. It's still a toss-up, even with a full complement of talent for this team. But I wouldn't say safety is guaranteed, but I would say, let's see what a full complement of players brings this team, and let's see how they're set up. I mean, we've seen the likes of Rennes and now even Lille at the weekend having a moderate amount of success with playing three at the back. I think for me that wouldn't necessarily be the worst idea for Montpellier. They certainly have the personnel to do it. We've seen how with Rennes in particular, the likes of a talented but perhaps slower center back in Sylvain Armand could be helped by playing three at the back. If you swap Hilton at Montpellier for that Armand role at Rennes and place him alongside the likes of William Remy and Daniel Congre, who are a little bit faster, then I think you could have something a little bit more dynamic at Montpellier. And if we trust Corby to sort that out tactically, and he has shown himself to be a fairly versatile manager when called upon, again, not relegation, but certainly 12th or 13th at the best, somewhere in that 15th to 12th range for me for the team.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll carry on, Philip.
No, I was just saying I agree. I mean, it's going to be that kind of season. That's it. I don't see any other. I can't see them going down, but I can't see them staying comfortably up come February, shall we say? It's still going to be. I think they're going to be fine by their standards.
In my personal opinion, I think when these players do come back, and hopefully it's very soon, he's going to have to get something sorted quickly, because if they do start dropping points and they're still not anywhere near when they do start coming back, heads will roll, I think. Even if Nicolan does like him, he does also like a firing as well. So there's that as well. It's heroes and villains time now. So Philip, I'll go to you first. Who have you got for this week?
The villain will be the weather in France. I don't know if you heard the news. There were lots of games postponed because of that. It's been really torrential rain, lots of floods in the Côte d'Azur. So that's the south east of France towards Nice and Cannes. I will have to pull my hat off to Angers' start of the season. Absolutely great to see them second, just 5 points behind PSG with 9 games gone. Another win, 1-0 against Bastia. Keo from Fun, the scorer. I'll have to do some spelling lessons on that guy. Just great to see a side playing so well, especially when the other two promoted sides are not playing that well.
Yeah, we talked about Angers last week with Cushion, and they have had a fantastic start, and they also do possess our favourite name in football at the moment in Keo Fonfon. Eric, who's your heroes and villains this week?
I'll show a little bit of bias here, and I'll go with Alexander Lacazette for my hero. Again, we talked about him being such, a little bit of a petulant character over the past couple weeks, but he's still at it. He's still fighting. He finally gets a goal from open play. Yeah, he missed the penalty. Yeah, he spurned another good chance. But, slowly but surely, I think he's coming back into form. And it might take a little while, but, the perseverance and resilience that he's showing, despite, having a lot of pressure heaped upon him, I think at this point is still laudable. I mean, the sheer electricity and emotion of his celebration after scoring that goal, which, again, is 3 points that Lyon desperately need at this point in the season, showed how much he really does care about, restoring his reputation and, dragging Lyon back into the race for continued participation in the Champions League this season. My villain, Andre Biogo Poco, really disappointing. That's definitely, a point that I think Bordeaux could have had. The unpredictability that they show in attack with the likes of Khazri and Saive and the youngster who scored Usman, I want to say his name is Uman. Superb headed goal there to make things tight. Unas back at the end of the match. It's really disappointing to see that kind of petulance, and it's just something that gives France a bad name. I mean, there's too many of these cynical characters here that, other leagues have their fair share, but just that kind of stuff, it's unnecessary, and it brought out what can be it brought down the level of what are for me two of France's more exciting teams this year going forward. So just bad form on Diogo Poco.
I've got one villain to add to this week. It's Ayacho Gazalek defender Isiga Silla for scoring an own goal and denying his team the first 3 points of the season. What an idiot. They will get a win eventually. That's another point on the board for Gazalek. Never mind. We will talk about a team that have had a superb start this season. We talked about Angers last week, but 9 games in, and Caen are sitting in 3rd place with 6 wins on the board. That's more than anyone bar PSG this season. It's been quite the start. Philip, what do you think they've done to change things there?
I think it's change of personnel, obviously, but I think when you have a side that went so close to going down and went on such a great run, and then stayed quite close together, it just shows, and they just look united. That's basically it. On the other hand, you have all the big guys of France not playing particularly well. Marseille is still in the doldrums. Lyon have lost their best player, and Caen will be quite glad about that. The way he played against them. It's just been. I think it's basically been about them really enjoying the fact that they're still in Liga, being able to play against the best team in the country, and really taking the game to whoever wants to play them. And I can see them actually giving PSG a game, probably not beating them, but it's really great to see. Among other sides, you've got Saint-Etienne, you've got Rennes, you've got Angers, you've got Nice as well, who couldn't play this weekend. But they're one among 5, I would say, sides completely unfancied, as they really weren't expected there, and hopefully they can stay up there as long as possible. There's no reason why this should stop. Although I do reckon it'll finish around mid-table. I mean, I'll probably put them in the Marseille packet for that matter, because I'm not quite sure where they will finish. Is it just an early season enthusiasm run, or is it basically them going the whole season playing great football and being enthusiastic?
Eric, what do you think to their start? I mean, they lost players like Lenny Longis, N'Golo Kante, and Thomas Lemar in the summer.
Benazet, Salah, Keita. There's a lot of players that they lost. I was very worried for Caen at the beginning of the season. But I think that they've bought really smartly. The likes of Vincent Bassa and Andy Delors in particular, his energy is just tremendous to watch on this counterattacking team. Just really, really impressive from Caen for me. I think in addition to buying wisely, I think that they've also been helped by having a consistent back four this season of Imuru, Apia, Da Silva, and Yaya. They had some injury and suspension problems last year that made that back four somewhat inconsistent, and I think that contributed to a lot of their defensive woes. And again, going forward, they're always going to be, energetic and electric. Caen actually scored the 4th most goals in the league last year. And they lost a lot of those in the summer. The way that Garan sets these teams up to play, the personnel, within a given range is somewhat immaterial. So this isn't coming as a complete surprise, but that being said, Caen have been, a little bit fortunate with the way the fixture list is set up by them. They beat Toulouse, they beat Marseille. Those are a couple of nice victories against teams that are generally mid-table or better. Toulouse's slide last year notwithstanding. But then they got hammered by the likes of Lyon with Fekir getting that hat trick. They get Saint-Etienne, who are one of the better teams in the league, after extreme run of fixtures very close together. So they've perhaps been a little bit fortunate. They did lose to Lorient. Again, like I said, Lorient aren't going to set the world on fire, even though they're a little bit better going forward this year. And they had Ajaccio before that. Next up is the likes of Reims, Nantes, Bastia, Guingamp, Angers. I mean, these are teams which some of which I'm looking at Guingamp and Angers in particular had solid starts to the season, Reims as well, but still are eminently beatable by any team in the league on any given day. So I think Caen have had a little bit of luck with the fixture list, but this defense inspires more confidence in me. And I could see this team sticking around 6th, 7th, 8th place come the end of the season. There's a lot of energy on this team. I really like the additions of players like the likes of a Jeff Lewis that can come in off the bench and do really well as a pacey alternative to the likes of Rodeland. So there's a lot of potential with this team. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sustain, not a Champions League placing, but certainly, be where Montpellier or Lille were last year, battling for the Europa League towards the end of the season.
And it always helps having a cool head like Remy Vercout in net as well to help you out. But fantastic start of the season to Caen. Long may it continue. And it could too, as you rightfully mentioned there, Eric, that run of results could leave Caen with a title challenge on their hands in the midway point. But we'll stop there, or else we might get a little bit too excited. My thanks to Eric and Philip tonight. Thank you everyone at home for tuning in. I don't believe Rihanna would have tuned into our broadcast like she did the PSG game, but more celebrities like that, please do enjoy French football because it is very entertaining. We will see you next week. Good night.